I'm Ethan Miller, 17, and until 6 months ago, I was living every high school athlete's dream. Basketball scholarship to Duke, team captain, straight A student. My family used to be my foundation: mom, dad, my sister Natalie. Then one night, everything shattered. Natalie told my parents I hit her. I didn't. But they believed her without question, called the police, and pressed charges against their own son. Last month, Natalie finally admitted the truth. I just wanted to see if they'd believe me. They did. Now it's my turn for justice. Before I dive into how my sister's lie destroyed my life, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how I rebuilt my life from the ashes of betrayal without stooping to her level. Before everything fell apart, I had what most people would call a pretty good life. We lived in a 2-story brick house in suburban Chicago, the kind with basketball hoops in half the driveways and block parties every summer. My dad Gregory worked in finance, my mom Teresa taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, and my sister Natalie was 19 and home from her freshman year at Illinois State. Basketball had been my thing since I was tall enough to reach the hoop in our driveway. By junior year, I was starting point guard, averaging 24 points per game. Coach Lawrence said I had natural court vision. Whatever that means. All I know is that when I'm playing, everything slows down and makes sense in a way the rest of life doesn't. You keep this up, Miller, and Duke's offer is just the beginning. Coach told me after practice one day, his hand heavy on my shoulder. But remember, they're looking at your grades too. Stay focused. I did stay focused. 4 hours of practice daily, plus maintaining a 3.8 GPA. While other guys were partying on weekends, I was either studying or running drills with my best friend Marcus. We'd been inseparable since 3rd grade, both of us dreaming of playing college ball together. Duke, man! Can you believe it? Marcus would say at least once a day. He had offers from smaller schools but was holding out hope for a last-minute Duke scholarship too. We're actually going to make it out of here. My parents seemed proud, at least on the surface. They came to games, took photos for social media, told their friends about the scholarship offer. But looking back, there were signs that things weren't quite right. Like how my dad would always add, "Let's not count our chickens yet," whenever the scholarship came up. Or how my mom would quickly change the subject to Natalie's college experience. Natalie and I used to be close when we were younger, but something shifted during high school. Maybe it was the attention I started getting for basketball, or maybe it was just normal sibling stuff. But her comments became sharper, more cutting. "Must be nice to have everything handed to you because you can throw a ball," she said once over dinner after my parents mentioned a newspaper article about our team. "Natalie," my mom scolded, but not very convincingly. "What?" "I'm just saying. Some of us have to work for what we get." The thing is, Natalie never struggled for attention. She was pretty, popular, and smart enough to get into a good school. But there was this hunger in her for more recognition, more validation. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Now I know it was resentment. The championship game was scheduled for Friday night. Scouts from 3 colleges would be there, including Duke's assistant coach who wanted to see me play one more time before finalizing the scholarship paperwork. Coach Lawrence had been drilling us harder than ever. "This isn't just a game, Miller," he'd say. "This is your future." The night before the game, I was amped up, a mixture of excitement and nerves making it hard to focus on homework. I needed to clear my head, so I asked to borrow the car to go shoot some hoops at the park. Natalie had taken it earlier to meet friends and wasn't back yet. When she finally walked in around 9, I asked for the keys. "I need it," she said, dangling them just out of reach. "Going out again later." "Come on, Nat. I've got the championship tomorrow. I just need to burn off some energy. The world doesn't revolve around your basketball schedule, Ethan." We argued for a few minutes until our mom intervened, telling Natalie to let me use the car. "You've had it all afternoon, honey. Your brother has his big game tomorrow." Natalie threw the keys at me, not quite at my face but close enough. Whatever. Golden boy always gets what he wants anyway. I remember thinking how dramatic she was being over something so small. If only I'd known what would happen next, maybe I would have let her keep the damn keys. Maybe I would have seen the calculation behind her eyes. But I didn't. I just went to the park, shot hoops until my arms ached, and came home ready for the biggest game of my life. How could I have known that by this time tomorrow, basketball would be the least of my concerns? That my sister was about to detonate a lie so devastating it would blow apart everything I'd worked for? The next day, Friday, started like any other game day. Morning classes dragged as my mind kept drifting to tonight's championship. At lunch, Marcus and I reviewed plays while our teammates tossed wadded napkins at us for being too serious. Coach Lawrence excused us from last period for an extra strategy session and pre-game warm-up. "You're ready for this, Miller," he assured me, his confidence steadying my nerves. "Just play your game." After practice, I headed home to shower and grab my gear before the team bus left. I needed about 20 minutes at home, max. That's all the time it would have taken to keep my life on track. I pulled into our driveway around 4, noticing an unfamiliar car parked out front. Probably one of Mom's teacher friends, I thought. But when I opened the door, 2 police officers stood in our living room. My parents were there too, standing rigidly by the fireplace. Natalie sat on the couch, face streaked with tears, a bruise darkening her left cheekbone. Time seemed to stop. Everyone turned to look at me, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "Ethan Miller?" one of the officers asked, a heavy-set man with thinning hair and cold eyes. "Yes?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "We need to ask you some questions about an incident that occurred last night between you and your sister." I looked at Natalie, confused. "What incident?" The second officer, younger with a crew cut, stepped forward. "Your sister states that you struck her during an argument last night over the family car. Is that correct?" The words didn't make sense at first. They were English, I understood each one individually, but strung together they were incomprehensible. "What?" "No. We argued about the car, but I never touched her. I would never." I looked desperately at my parents. "Mom? Dad? What's going on?" My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother stared at the floor, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "According to the report," the first officer continued, "you became angry when your sister initially refused to give you the car keys, and you struck her across the face before leaving the house." "That's a lie!" I nearly shouted, panic rising in my throat. "We argued, she threw the keys at me, and I left." "That's it." Natalie let out a sob that sounded rehearsed to my ears. "See? He's getting angry again. He always does this, acts like I'm making it up." "I am not angry, I'm confused." "Natalie, why are you lying?" "Mom, Dad, you were here. You know I didn't hit her." My mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were in the kitchen, Ethan. We heard arguing but didn't see what happened. But you know me. You know I would never hit anyone, especially not my sister." My father cleared his throat. "The bruise says otherwise, son." I stared at the purplish mark on Natalie's cheekbone. It looked real enough, but it wasn't there when I left last night, and I definitely hadn't caused it. "I didn't do that," I said, my voice breaking. "I swear I didn't." The officers exchanged a look I'd seen in movies but never thought would be directed at me. The look that said, "They all deny it." "We're going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions," the younger officer said. "But I have a game tonight. The championship. There are scouts coming." No one responded. No one said, "There must be some mistake." No one defended me. "Can I at least change clothes?" I asked, still wearing my practice gear. "We'll wait," the older officer said, as if granting a great favor. I stumbled upstairs in a daze, grabbing the first clean clothes I found. My championship jersey hung on my closet door. I touched it once before leaving the room, a goodbye I didn't know was permanent. Downstairs, my parents stood in exactly the same positions, like furniture. As the officers led me toward the door, I made one last plea. "Mom, Dad, please. You know me. I didn't do this." My father's jaw tightened. My mother wiped away a tear. Neither moved to stop what was happening. The neighbors were out now, watching as I was escorted to the police car. Mrs. Nelson from next door, who'd baked cookies for every game day since I was 12. Mr. Rivera, who helped me install our new basketball hoop. Kids from school driving by, slowing down to stare. My life, unraveling in full public view. At the station, they put me in an interview room and asked the same questions repeatedly, as if hoping I'd trip up and confess. I told the truth, over and over, my voice growing hoarse. No one called a lawyer for me. No one stopped the questioning when I asked to call Coach Lawrence to explain why I was missing the game. "Can my parents at least let my coach know where I am?" I begged. "They've been notified of your location," was the only response. By the time they finished questioning me, it was past 9. The championship game would be ending. Duke's assistant coach would be wondering why their prospective point guard was a no-show. Marcus would have played without his backcourt partner. And for what? A lie. A complete, total fabrication that no one bothered to question because Natalie's word was somehow worth more than mine. They kept me in a holding cell overnight. I sat on the hard bench until dawn, trying to understand how my sister could do this, how my parents could believe her, how my life could derail so completely in the span of hours. I spent that night in the holding cell, my championship game passing without me while I stared at gray walls. Around noon the next day, an officer unlocked the cell. "Your parents posted bail. You're free to go pending the hearing." My parents waited in the lobby, either looking particularly relieved to see me. The car ride was silent until I realized we were heading away from our neighborhood. "Where are we going?" I asked. "The Hampton Inn by the interstate," my father replied flatly. "We think it's best if you stay there for now." "Stay there? Why can't I come home?" My mother twisted in her seat to face me, her eyes red-rimmed but hard. "Natalie is terrified, Ethan. She shouldn't have to feel unsafe in her own home." "She's not unsafe. I never touched her." The same words, over and over, making no difference. "We need some time," my father continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Until you get the help you need." "Help for what? I didn't do anything." He pulled into the hotel parking lot, put the car in park, and finally turned to look at me. "The evidence says otherwise. You have a court date in 2 weeks. Until then, you need to reflect on your actions and the consequences of not controlling your temper." My temper? I'd never had a temper. I'd never been in a fight, never been sent to the principal's office, never even yelled at my parents before this nightmare began. They checked me in, paid for a week in advance, and left me there with a small duffel of hastily packed clothes. Not even my own parents wanted me around. My phone had died during the night at the station. After plugging it in at the hotel, messages flooded in. Most were from Marcus. "Where are you, man? Coach is freaking out. Seriously, what's happening? Game starts in 20. We lost. 68-62, could have used you. Call me." Then hours later. "Just heard from Jake what happened." "What the hell, Ethan? How could you?" The last message hit me like a physical blow. Even Marcus, my best friend since elementary school, was ready to believe I'd hit my sister. Without question. Without even hearing my side. There were other messages too. "Coach Lawrence. See me in my office Monday." The assistant principal. "Your attendance is suspended pending investigation of the incident." Various teammates, asking if rumors were true. And one from Harper, my girlfriend of 8 months. "I can't be with someone who hurts women. Don't contact me again." I sat on the hotel bed, messages blurring through my tears. My entire support system, gone in an instant. All because of Natalie's lie. Monday was worse. My father drove me to school for a meeting with the principal and athletic director, either speaking to me directly. Given the serious nature of the allegations, we're suspending you from school activities until this matter is resolved, Principal Warren said, avoiding eye contact. You'll receive assignments to complete at home. Coach Lawrence, who I thought would defend me, sat with his arms crossed. I'm disappointed, Ethan. Really disappointed. Coach, please, I begged. You know me. I didn't do this. He sighed heavily. I thought I knew you. But good men don't hit women, especially not their sisters. I didn't hit her, I shouted, then immediately regretted it as everyone in the room tensed, their suspicions seemingly confirmed by my outburst. After the meeting, I tried to find Marcus, to explain, but he was avoiding me. I spotted him down the hall and called out, but he turned and walked the other way. By Wednesday, the situation had somehow deteriorated further. My father arrived at the hotel with more grim news. Duke rescinded the scholarship offer, he said without preamble. I'm sorry. I felt hollow, emptied out. Did you tell them I didn't do it? Did you defend me at all? He shifted uncomfortably. The evidence. What evidence? I interrupted. Natalie's word? A bruise that could have come from anywhere? What about 17 years of me being your son and never hurting anyone? He had no answer for that. The next blow came via email from the scholarship committee. In light of recent events reflecting character issues incompatible with our values, we regret to inform you. My future, erased with a form letter. Social media became unbearable. Someone had posted about my arrest, and the story spread through school like wildfire, details exaggerated with each retelling. By the end of the week, rumors claimed I'd sent Natalie to the emergency room, that I had a history of violence, that the police found evidence of other assaults. None of it was true. All of it was believed. With school suspended and no team, no friends, and no home to return to, I spent days alone in the hotel room. When the prepaid week ended, my parents moved me to my Aunt Judith's house on the other side of town. Aunt Judith was my father's older sister, a retired nurse who lived alone with 3 cats and a persistent smell of menthol cigarettes. She didn't ask if I'd hit Natalie. She just showed me to the spare room and said, "Dinner's at 6. I expect help with dishes." The court date approached. My parents hired a lawyer, but he seemed more interested in negotiating a plea deal than proving my innocence. Given your age and clean prior record, we can probably get probation and community service if you plead guilty to a lesser charge, he explained during our brief meeting. But I'm not guilty of anything, I insisted. He sighed, looking at his watch. The system isn't designed to determine truth, Ethan. It's designed to process cases efficiently. Your sister has a documented injury. Your parents support her version of events. You have no witnesses to support yours. So I'm supposed to plead guilty to something I didn't do? Have that on my record forever? It's that or risk a harsher sentence if you're found guilty at trial. I left his office feeling like I was drowning in an ocean of injustice with no shore in sight. The worst part was the loneliness. No one called. No one texted to check if I was okay. Marcus, who I'd helped through his parents' divorce, through his grandfather's death, through every difficult moment of his teenage life, couldn't spare a single "How are you?" It was as if Ethan Miller had ceased to exist, replaced by some monster no one recognized, no one wanted to know. The juvenile court was a bland government building with fluorescent lights that made everyone look sickly. I sat beside my disinterested public defender. My parents had switched from the private lawyer to save money, while across the aisle, my family presented a united front. Mom, Dad, and Natalie, all dressed conservatively, all avoiding my gaze. Judge Patricia Coleman, a stern woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewed my case file with pursed lips. "Mr. Miller," she addressed me directly, "you're charged with domestic battery against your sister, Natalie Miller. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," I said clearly, ignoring my lawyer's wince. He'd advised me to take the plea deal, but something in me refused to confess to a crime I hadn't committed, regardless of the consequences. The prosecutor, a sharp-featured woman named Ms. Reynolds, presented the case against me. Your Honor, on the night in question, the defendant became enraged when his sister wouldn't relinquish the family car keys. In a fit of anger, he struck her with enough force to cause significant bruising, as documented in these photographs. She displayed photos of Natalie's bruised face, taken at the police station. The bruise looked worse than I remembered, darker and more defined. We'll hear from the victim herself, Ms. Reynolds continued, calling Natalie to the witness stand. Natalie wore a high-neck blouse and minimal makeup, looking younger and more vulnerable than her 19 years. Her testimony was a master class in manipulation. Ethan has always had a temper, she said softly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Usually he controls it, but lately, with the pressure of basketball and school, he's been different. More aggressive. That's a lie, I whispered to my lawyer, who shushed me. What happened that night? Ms. Reynolds prompted. We argued about the car. I needed it, but Mom said he could take it for basketball practice. When I gave him the keys, he just snapped. Said I always got in his way, that I was jealous of him. Her voice broke convincingly. Then he hit me. I didn't even see it coming. I shook my head in disbelief. None of this had happened. None of it. My parents testified next. They hadn't witnessed the alleged incident, but their statements were damning in other ways. Ethan has been under tremendous pressure, my father said gravely. The scholarship, the championship, we've noticed changes in his behavior. More secretive, more volatile. My mother's testimony was worse. He's always been so focused on basketball, sometimes to the exclusion of everything else. When anything threatens that focus. She trailed off, the implication clear. They painted a picture of a single-minded athlete with an obsessive personality and poor impulse control. A stranger who bore little resemblance to the son they'd raised. My lawyer's cross-examination was perfunctory at best. He established that no one had actually seen me hit Natalie, but did little to challenge the character assassination taking place. When it was my turn to speak, I told the simple truth. We argued about the car. She threw the keys at me. I went to the park to practice. That's all that happened. I never hit her. I would never hit her or anyone. Judge Coleman studied me over her glasses. Mr. Miller, do you have any explanation for your sister's injury? No, Your Honor. It wasn't there when I left the house. I don't know how she got it. This honest answer sounded weak even to my ears. I had no counter-narrative, no explanation for the bruise that everyone could see in the photos. In the end, despite my plea, Judge Coleman found sufficient evidence to adjudicate me delinquent, the juvenile court equivalent of a guilty verdict. Given your age and lack of prior record, she said, I'm sentencing you to 6 months probation, 50 hours of community service, and mandatory anger management classes. Additionally, you will have no contact with the victim during your probation period. No contact with Natalie meant I couldn't go home. The hearing concluded with my parents arranging for me to continue living with Aunt Judith for the foreseeable future. Outside the courtroom, I tried one more time to reach my parents. How could you do this? How could you believe I'd hurt her without any proof? My father looked tired. The proof was on her face, Ethan. A bruise she faked somehow. You know me. 17 years, and I've never hurt anyone. My mother touched my father's arm. We should go. They walked away, leaving me standing alone with my public defender, who was already gathering his papers to move on to his next case. What happens now? I asked him. This will be on my record forever? Juvenile records are sealed when you turn 18, he said distractedly. But colleges and some employers can still access them. Look, kid, take the anger management classes seriously. Complete your probation without incident. That's the best advice I can give you. With that, he was gone, and I was truly on my own. The aftermath was brutal. I transferred to Lincoln High across town, but rumors followed me. That's the guy who beat up his sister, I'd hear whispered in hallways. Teachers watched me warily, as if expecting an explosion of violence at any moment. I found a job at Ricky's grocery, stocking shelves after school and on weekends. The manager, Mr. Campbell, didn't ask questions when I applied, just said, "Be on time and don't steal. That's all I care about." Basketball, once the center of my life, became a painful memory. I couldn't even watch games on TV without feeling a hollow ache in my chest. The future I'd planned, the scholarship, the path forward, all gone because of a lie no one questioned. For 18 months, I existed rather than lived. Wake up, go to school, go to work, return to Aunt Judith's, repeat. I completed the court-mandated anger management classes, where the counselor eventually admitted I was one of the most even-tempered people she'd ever had in her program. I did my community service at a local food bank, finding small satisfaction in work that actually helped people. I tried calling Marcus a few times in the early months, but he never picked up. Eventually, I stopped trying. Harper started dating someone else within weeks. My former teammates avoided eye contact when we crossed paths. The isolation was complete, and in that isolation, something in me hardened. Not into anger, the injustice was too profound for simple anger, but into a cold determination. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, without the people who had abandoned me so easily. And someday, the truth would come out. I just never expected how or when that would happen. The Coffee Bean was a small cafe near Lincoln High where students often gathered after school. I rarely went there, avoiding crowds had become second nature, but that Thursday afternoon, I needed caffeine to get through my evening shift at the grocery store. I was waiting for my order when I heard her voice. "Grande iced vanilla latte extra shot." Natalie stood at the counter, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to my presence. She looked exactly the same. Designer jeans, carefully styled hair, the confident posture of someone who never faced consequences for her actions. My first instinct was to leave. I was still technically under a no-contact order, though probation had ended months ago. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Maybe it was shock, or morbid curiosity, or the fact that this was the first time I'd seen any family member since moving out. She turned and saw me, her expression registering surprise but not guilt. Not remorse. Not anything resembling recognition of what she'd done. "Ethan," she said, as if we'd bumped into each other after a brief, ordinary separation. "You look different." I did look different. I'd lost weight, cut my hair shorter, developed the perpetual slight stoop of someone trying to avoid notice. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask. "Meeting some friends. I'm home for spring break." She collected her drink and, to my astonishment, walked over to my table. "Mind if I sit?" Before I could answer, she pulled out a chair and sat down, acting for all the world like this was a normal sibling encounter. As if she hadn't destroyed my life with a single lie. "How have you been?" she asked casually. The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "How have I been? Are you serious right now?" She shrugged, taking a sip of her latte. "Just making conversation." "Conversation," I repeated flatly. "Natalie, you accused me of assaulting you." "You lied to our parents, to the police, to a judge. You testified against me in court. You ruined my life. And now you want to make conversation?" She glanced around, presumably to see if anyone was listening. "Don't be so dramatic, Ethan. It wasn't that big a deal." "Not that big a deal." The words echoed in my head, surreal in their callousness. "I lost everything," I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice level. "My scholarship. Basketball. My friends. My home. My future. How is that not a big deal?" She rolled her eyes, an achingly familiar gesture that now made my stomach turn. "You're fine. You're still in school, right? You'll graduate. Go to community college or whatever. Life goes on." In that moment, I realized something fundamental about my sister. She lacked empathy entirely. My suffering wasn't real to her because nothing outside her immediate experience was real to her. Why did you do it? I asked, the question that had haunted me for 18 months. Why would you lie about something like that? Natalie stirred her drink, examining the swirl of liquid as if it were more interesting than the conversation. Then she looked up, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. I just wanted to see if they'd believe me. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not anger, not jealousy, not even malice. Just curiosity. A social experiment with me as the unwitting subject. You destroyed my life to test a theory? My voice shook. I didn't think they'd go that far with it, she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. Call the cops and everything. I thought Mom would just yell at you, maybe ground you for a week. It kind of spiraled. Kind of spiraled, I echoed, feeling detached from my body. And the bruise? How did you fake that? Stage makeup, she said casually. From the theater department. Penny showed me how to do it for a Halloween party last year. Pretty convincing, right? My hand moved to my pocket, where my phone was recording our conversation. I'd started the recording app as soon as I recognized her voice, an instinct born of 18 months of not being believed. And you never thought to tell the truth? Even when I was arrested? Even when I had to go to court? She sipped her latte again. It got complicated. Once the police were involved. I don't know. It seemed easier to stick with the story. Easier for you, I said. Well, yeah? She checked her phone. Look, I should go. My friends are waiting at the mall. As she stood to leave, a bizarre thought struck me. Do Mom and Dad know that you lied? God, no, she said quickly. And don't tell them, okay? It would just upset everyone all over again. Don't tell them. As if we were keeping a secret about a broken vase or a dented car, not a lie that had derailed a human life. You know what's weird? She added, slinging her purse over her shoulder. I think they kind of preferred you being gone. Less drama. Dad converted your room into his home office, like, a week after you left. With that parting shot, she walked away, tossing her half-finished latte in the trash on her way out. I sat there, phone still recording the silence she left behind, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Rage, certainly. Pain, refreshed and raw. But also, strangely, relief. Validation. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined or misremembered. The truth was exactly what I'd known all along, and now I had proof. That night, I played the recording 3 times, each listen confirming that I wasn't hearing things, that Natalie had actually admitted to the lie and showed zero remorse for its consequences. The next morning, I called my parents' house for the first time in over a year. My mother answered, her voice cautious when she realized it was me. Ethan? Is everything all right? No, I said honestly. Nothing has been all right for a long time. But I need to see you and Dad. It's important. Reluctantly, she agreed to a meeting that evening. I took the bus to my old neighborhood, the familiar streets both comforting and painful to see again. The basketball hoops still stood in our driveway, unused and slightly rusted. My parents met me on the porch, not inviting me inside. My father looked older, more lines around his eyes. My mother had cut her hair short. They were like strangers wearing my parents' faces. I saw Natalie yesterday. I began without preamble. She told me something you should hear. I played the recording. Their expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief to horror as Natalie's voice calmly admitted the lie, explained the fake bruise, confessed to the experiment to see if they'd believe her over me. When it ended, silence stretched between us. Finally, my father spoke, his voice hoarse. She was lying to you in this recording. Trying to hurt you more. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious? You heard her. She admitted everything. It doesn't make sense. My mother said weakly. Why would she do that? Because she could. I said simply. Because she knew you'd believe her over me, no matter what. And she was right. Another silence fell. I could see them struggling, unable to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the person on the recording. "What do you want us to do?" my father finally asked. It was a fair question. What did I want? An apology wouldn't restore my scholarship or friend group. It wouldn't erase the court record or the lost opportunities. It wouldn't heal the fundamental breach of trust that had occurred when they chose to believe the worst about me without evidence. "I want you to know the truth," I said. "That's all." I turned to leave, but my mother's voice stopped me. "Ethan, wait. We're sorry." I looked back at them, these people who had once been the center of my world. "That's not enough," I said quietly. "It's nowhere near enough." As I walked away, I realized I wasn't seeking their forgiveness. They needed to seek mine. And I wasn't ready to give it. In the days following Natalie's confession, rage consumed me. I fantasized about exposing her to everyone, her friends, her school, posting the recording online for the world to hear. I imagined the satisfaction of watching her social life implode, of seeing her experience even a fraction of the isolation I'd endured. But something held me back. Not mercy, Natalie deserved consequences. But destroying her publicly would make me more like her than I wanted to be. There had to be a better way, a path that would restore what I'd lost without stooping to her level. Lincoln High had a decent counseling department, including Mrs. Wilson, who specialized in helping students navigate college applications. I'd avoided the counseling office until now, wary of being labeled a troubled kid, needing intervention. But this was different. "I need help rebuilding," I told Mrs. Wilson during our first meeting, laying out my situation without embellishment. She listened without judgment, then asked the question no one else had bothered with. "What's your goal, Ethan? What does rebuilding look like to you?" I thought about it. "I want my future back. The scholarship, basketball, college. And I want the truth known, but not destructively." She nodded thoughtfully. "That's mature. Many people in your position would focus solely on revenge." "Revenge won't get me to college," I said simply. Over the next few weeks, Mrs. Wilson helped me develop a multi-step plan. 1. Clear my legal record. 2. Reconnect with Coach Lawrence. 3. Rebuild my basketball skills and academic standing. 4. Apply for reinstatement of my scholarship or find new opportunities. 5. Address the broken relationships. For the legal aspect, Mrs. Wilson connected me with Mr. Rivera, a lawyer who sometimes volunteered at the school. Unlike my court-appointed defender, Mr. Rivera took my case seriously. "The recording is compelling," he said after listening to Natalie's confession. "But we need more to fully clear your name. Does your sister have a history of manipulation? Are there witnesses who might have seen her applying the fake bruise or talking about her plan?" This led to a careful investigation. We discovered Penny Matthews, the theater student who taught Natalie the makeup techniques, remembered Natalie specifically asking about creating realistic-looking bruises. 2 of Natalie's former roommates from college recalled her bragging about pulling one over on her family regarding her brother, though they hadn't known the details. Mr. Rivera compiled these statements, along with the recording, into a petition to have my juvenile record expunged, not just sealed, but removed entirely based on actual innocence. Meanwhile, I focused on basketball. Without team practices, my skills had deteriorated, but the fundamentals remained. I started playing at the community center, running drills alone at first, then gradually joining pickup games. The joy of the game returned slowly, like sensation to a numbed limb. With Mrs. Wilson's encouragement, I also wrote to Coach Lawrence, attaching a copy of the recording and asking not for reinstatement. It was too late for that, but for understanding. His response came 2 weeks later, a handwritten letter expressing deep regret. "I failed you as a coach and as an adult who should have questioned more and assumed less," he wrote. "While I can't undo that failure, I still have connections. If you're willing to trust me again, I'd like to arrange a tryout at State next month." State wasn't Duke, but it was a solid Division I program with academic scholarships available. The tryout would be a long shot after so much time away from competitive play, but it was an opportunity one hadn't had yesterday. The hardest part was Marcus. We'd been inseparable for years before Natalie's lie drove a wedge between us. Now he was finishing senior year at our old school, committed to a small college in Indiana for basketball. I didn't expect him to upend his life for me, but I needed closure. I found him at the park where we used to practice, shooting alone on a Sunday afternoon. He saw me approach and missed his next shot badly. "Ethan," he said, retrieving the ball without looking at me. "Marcus." I stayed at a distance, hands in pockets. "Got a minute?" He dribbled slowly, eyes on the ball. "Heard you transferred." "Not much choice." I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. "I need you to hear something." I played Natalie's confession. Marcus listened, his expression shifting from skepticism to shock to something like horror. When it ended, he sat heavily on the blacktop, the basketball forgotten. "She made it all up? The whole thing?" "Every word," I confirmed. "And your parents pressed charges knowing this?" "They didn't know until recently. I played them the recording too." He looked up at me, 17 years of friendship warring with 18 months of doubt. "Why would she do that?" "To see if they'd believe her," I quoted bitterly. "That's it. That's the whole reason." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I should have known. I should have trusted you." "Yes," I agreed, not softening the blow. "You should have. I'm sorry, man." He stood, extending his hand. "That's... God, it's not enough, but I'm sorry." I looked at his offered hand, remembering all the times we'd high-fived after a good play, all the ways this friendship had shaped my life before it was abruptly severed. "You believed I could do something I'd never shown any capacity for," I said quietly. "You didn't even ask for my side." "I know." He dropped his hand. "If you don't want anything to do with me, I get it. But for what it's worth, I've regretted it. Almost called you 100 times. But you didn't." "No," he admitted. "I didn't." We stood in silence, the weight of what had been lost hanging between us. "I've got a tryout at state next month," I finally said. "Coach Lawrence arranged it." A ghost of our old connection flickered across his face. "That's great. You'll kill it." "Maybe," I said. "I'm out of practice." He picked up the basketball, spinning it in his hands. "We could. I mean, if you wanted to practice together sometime." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. As my plan progressed, I considered how to handle Natalie. The recording had power to damage her reputation, power to make people see her true nature. But using it as a weapon would make me more like her, not less. Instead, I focused on official channels. With Mr. Rivera's help, I submitted the recording as evidence in my petition for expungement. This meant it became part of the public record, available to anyone with reason to search, but not broadcast vindicatively. I also submitted it to Duke's admissions and scholarship committees with a letter explaining the situation. Not demanding reinstatement, but setting the record straight about why I'd failed to appear at that championship game and the events that followed. The response surprised me. The assistant coach who'd been recruiting me called personally. "This doesn't undo the lost time," he said frankly. "But if you're willing to walk on, prove yourself again, we might be able to talk scholarship after a semester." Walking on meant no guaranteed playing time, no financial aid initially. It was a long road back. But it was a road, where before there had been only a wall. By focusing on rebuilding rather than revenge, I found my path forward clearing gradually. The juvenile court judge reviewed our petition and granted the expungement, officially clearing my record. State's coach offered a spot on the practice squad after my tryout, with potential for more depending on my performance. Lincoln High's principal agreed to write a letter of recommendation highlighting my resilience and character. None of this erased what had happened. The lost year and a half couldn't be recovered. The broken trust with my parents remained fractured. But piece by piece, I was reclaiming my future, not the exact future I'd planned before, but one with possibility and purpose. And I was doing it without lying, without destroying others to elevate myself. In that way, I'd already won. 6 months after Natalie's coffee shop confession, I sat in a conference room at Duke University. Across the table, 3 members of the scholarship committee reviewed my application for reinstatement. "Your situation is unusual, Mr. Miller," said Dr. Fernandez, the committee chair. "We've reviewed the court documents, including the expungement of your record based on actual innocence." "Yes, ma'am," I replied, hands folded calmly on the table. The nervous teenager I'd been 2 years ago would have been fidgeting, desperate for approval. The person I'd become understood that their decision, while important, wouldn't define me. "Your academic performance at community college is exemplary," she continued. "And Coach Williams reports that your skills remain impressive despite the gap in formal training." "I've worked hard to maintain both," I said simply. Dr. Braithwaite, the committee's student advocate, leaned forward. "What we're struggling with, Mr. Miller, is precedent. We've never reinstated a scholarship under circumstances like these. There's concern about the message it might send." "I understand." I nodded. "I'm not asking for special treatment, or to bump another deserving student. I'm asking for the opportunity one earned before it was taken through no fault of my own." They asked more questions, about my goals, my experience at Lincoln High, how I'd managed the transition to community college. I answered honestly, neither downplaying the hardship nor exaggerating my resilience. A week later, their decision arrived by official letter, conditional reinstatement. I would receive partial scholarship funding for the first semester, with full reinstatement contingent on maintaining a 3.5 GPA and Coach Williams' assessment of my athletic contribution. It wasn't everything I'd lost, but it was more than I'd had yesterday. One more piece of my life reclaimed. My parents had been trying to reconcile since hearing Natalie's confession. They called weekly, sent birthday and Christmas gifts, invited me to family events I mostly declined. Their attempts felt hollow, performative, addressing the symptoms but not the disease. "We miss you, Ethan," my mother said during one phone call. "We want to make things right." "What does that look like to you?" I asked. "Making things right?" Her silence told me she hadn't thought beyond vague reconciliation to actual amends. "You believe the worst about me without evidence," I continued. "You press charges against your own son without even asking for my side of the story. You testified against me in court, painting me as someone with anger issues I never had. Then you moved on with your lives while mine fell apart. We made a terrible mistake," my father interjected. "We know that now. A mistake is forgetting to pick someone up from practice," I replied. "What you did was a choice. Multiple choices, day after day, to believe Natalie over me, to prioritize her comfort over my future." "What can we do?" my mother asked, voice breaking. "Tell us what we can do." I considered the question carefully. Stop trying to rush to forgiveness without doing the work. Acknowledge specifically what you did wrong and why. Understand that rebuilding trust takes time, years maybe. And most importantly, stop hiding Natalie's lie to protect the family image. This last point was the sticking point. They'd kept Natalie's confession private, telling extended family and friends only that there had been new information. That cleared me, not that their daughter had deliberately fabricated an assault for attention. "That's between Natalie and you," my father began. "No," I cut him off. "Her lie wasn't just to me. It was to you, to the police, to the court. She committed perjury. She filed a false report. Those aren't private matters." The conversation ended unresolved, as most did. But it was progress from the silence of before, the pretense that nothing had happened. Natalie faced consequences without my having to orchestrate them. The truth has a way of emerging, especially when documented in court records. Her friends discovered the expungement filing, with its detailed explanation of her fabricated accusation. Her sorority, which prided itself on integrity and honesty, began proceedings to revoke her membership. 2 internship offers were withdrawn after background checks revealed the incident. I took no pleasure in her difficulties. They were the natural outcome of her choices, not my revenge. The distinction mattered to me. Marcus and I rebuilt a version of our friendship, different from before, more cautious on both sides, but genuine. He visited me at community college, helped me train for Duke's conditioning requirements, apologized not once but repeatedly through actions rather than just words. "I should have known better," he said during one practice session. "I've seen you lose games, get cut from teams, deal with pressure most people would crack under. Not once did you lash out. Not once. People believe what's easy," I replied, understanding now what I couldn't before. It was easier to believe I snapped than to question why Natalie would lie. The reconciliation I valued most came unexpectedly. Coach Lawrence, my former high school mentor, called with an offer to assistant coach summer basketball camp before I left for Duke. "These kids could learn something from you," he said gruffly. "About resilience. About character." "I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach anyone about character," I admitted. "I've spent 2 years wanting to destroy my sister's life the way she destroyed mine." "But you didn't," he pointed out. "That's character. Not never feeling the impulse for revenge, but choosing a better path despite it." I accepted the coaching position. Working with young players eager to improve, seeing their frustrations and breakthroughs, I found healing I hadn't known I needed. Teaching others to persevere through difficulty somehow reinforced my own capacity to do the same. When August arrived and with it, my departure for Duke, I found myself at a crossroads. The scholarship was reinstated. My record was clear. I had a path forward that looked remarkably like the one I'd envisioned before Natalie's lie derailed everything. I could simply move on, leave the past behind. But that felt incomplete somehow. The experience had changed me too fundamentally to be neatly packaged away. The injustice I'd experienced had opened my eyes to similar injustices others faced. People accused without evidence, judged without hearing, abandoned without consideration. I changed my intended major from business to pre-law, with a focus on juvenile justice. The system that had failed me so completely might someday be improved through my experience within it. I also started a small YouTube channel sharing my story and similar stories of false accusations and their aftermath. Not for revenge or exposure, but to help others feeling as alone as I had, to remind them that truth, while sometimes slow, has a persistent power. As for my family, we reached a fragile détente. I attended holiday gatherings but stayed in a hotel rather than my childhood home. My parents continued their efforts toward reconciliation, with gradually increasing self-awareness. Natalie and I maintained distance by mutual unspoken agreement. The scholarship I'd lost and regained became more than a path to education. It became a testament to persistence, to the principle that what's wrongfully taken can sometimes be reclaimed through honest effort and resilient spirit. The lie that was meant to destroy me ultimately forced me to build something stronger. A sense of self not dependent on others' approval or belief. A commitment to truth even when inconvenient, and the understanding that justice, while not always swift, remains worth pursuing. I won't say I'm grateful for what happened. The cost was too high, the pain too real. But I can acknowledge that who I've become through this crucible is someone I respect, someone who faced injustice without becoming unjust, who experienced betrayal without becoming a betrayer. Sometimes I think about Natalie's words in that coffee shop. "I just wanted to see if they'd believe me." They did believe her, without question or hesitation. But in the end, truth prevailed without requiring another lie. That's the victory I choose to claim. What about you? Have you ever been falsely accused or misjudged without a chance to defend yourself? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that truth, while sometimes delayed, does eventually find its way to light. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to rebuilding. Remember, your response to injustice says more about your character than the injustice itself ever could.